9.2 is going to be working with arithmetic sequences. Arithmetic just means that it's a pattern that is adding or subtracting by the same number. And sequence means that it's a list of numbers separated by commas. So to be an arithmetic sequence, the pattern needs to be adding or subtracting and by the same number. And to be a sequence, it needs to be a list of numbers separated by a comma. So we're going to take a look at identifying yes or no, is it an arithmetic sequence or not. So again, it's separated by commas, so that means a sequence, so that is good. And then the pattern has to be adding or subtracting by the same number. And notice each time I am adding 3. So I would say yes, this is an arithmetic sequence, and I would say that my common difference then is it's adding 3 each time. This next one, it's a sequence. We can see it's separated by commas, but notice they're not adding or subtracting by the same number. We add 3 here and then we add 5. There may be a pattern, but we're not adding or subtracting by the same number, so we're going to say this is no. It is not an arithmetic sequence, and so we cannot find the common difference. The next one, we go 2, 4, 8, 16. Notice we add 2 here, but then we're adding 4. We're not adding the same number each time, so this one again is no. It is not an arithmetic sequence, so we cannot find the common difference. Now for these below problems, we're going to use this arithmetic sequence formula. So it is a to the n equals a to the 1 plus n minus 1 times our d. And I would go ahead and label what each of the variables represents. So this a to the n is what is the nth term. A to the 1 means what is the first term. Our n represents our term number. So do we want to find the 5th term or do we want to find the 10th term? And then minus 1, and then our d represents common difference. What are we adding or subtracting by? Is the pattern adding by 2 each time? We would put a positive 2 here. Is the pattern subtracting 5 each time? Then we would put a negative 5 here. We're always going to be multiplying by d, so make sure if the pattern is subtracting 5 each time that we multiply it by negative 5. Alrighty, so let's look at some examples. So for this first one, we want to know what is the 100th term of the arithmetic sequence. So the sequence is 6, 11, and they don't give us any more information. So we can see it's an arithmetic sequence. It tells us that. So that pattern has to be adding or subtracting by the same number. So to go from 6 to 11, they're adding 5. So they must keep adding 5 to get to that 100th term. Now, we're not going to want to take the time to keep adding 5 until we get to that 100th term. So we want to use this equation that is given for us. And this equation only works if it's an arithmetic sequence. We can't use it if it is not. So we're going to go through, plug in what we do know. So we want to find the 100th term, so we're going to plug in 100 for our n's. So we would have a to the 100, and then 100 and for n here. And then from there, we know our common difference, we're adding 5 each time. So we're going to plug in a positive 5 in the d slot. Okay, and then one other thing that we know is this a to the 1 is what is our first term. We know our first term is 6, so we can substitute that in. Now if we simplify this down, we're going to get what is that 100th term, what we're trying to solve for. So make sure order of operations, we're going to take 100 minus the 1, do parentheses first, and that's how we get the 99. And then multiply that by our 5, so 99 times 5, and then add the 6 to that. So if we take 6 plus parentheses 99 times our 5, notice we get 501. So if we keep going ahead and adding 5 until we get to that 100th term, our 100th term is going to be 501. And that was a lot quicker than going ahead and keep adding 5. Now this next one looks a little bit different. So they give us the first term is 100, and then they give us the 4th term is 82. And we need to find the 2 blanks in between. However, on this one, since we don't know 2 numbers back to back, we don't know what the common difference is. So we need to solve for the common difference so then we can fill in the blanks. So we're still going to use this equation because they tell us it's an arithmetic sequence. so we can use it. So how we're going to use it, we know what our first term is. So our a to the 1 is what is our first term. So we can plug in 100 there. Or I'm going to label that our a to the 1. And then from there, we don't know the common difference, so that can only be our missing variable. We can't have more than one missing variable. So we know what our fourth term is, so we're going to use that to our advantage. That we're going to plug in 4 for n. And I know it's going to kind of seem silly to plug in 4 because we already know what the fourth term is, but we're going to use that to our advantage so we can solve for d. So our a to the 4 means what is our fourth term. We already know it, so we can plug in 82. What is our first term? We're going to plug in 100. And then our n was 4 because we knew the fourth term. We want to plug in a term that we know. So we have 4 minus 1. We're going to get 3 there. And then our d, we're going to leave it. We're trying to solve for d. So we have 4 minus 1 is 3, so 3 times d is 3d. And then notice we only have our missing variable as d, so we're going to solve for d. So subtract 100 from both sides. Those cancel out. So we get 82 minus 100 is negative 18 equals 3d. Divide both sides by 3, and we get d equals negative 6. And what our d represents is that's our common difference. That's what we're adding or subtracting by. So now that we know we're subtracting 6 each time, we start with 100. If we subtract 6, notice we get 94, so that's going to be our first blank. And then if we subtract 6 again, that is going to be our next blank. And if we subtract 6 again, notice we should then get the fourth number, that it is working each time. So we found the correct missing 2 terms. Alrighty, let's keep using some further examples to get more comfortable with this. So this next one, they give us the first 3 terms, 3, 5, 7. We want to find the 46th term. So we can see our pattern is adding 2 each time. We're not going to want to take the time to keep adding 2 though until we get to that 46th term. So we want to go ahead and use our formula for arithmetic sequences. And we want to find the 46th term. So we're going to plug in 46 for our n. So we're going to plug in 46 here, and we're going to plug in 46 in for this n. Okay, this a to the 46 means what is the 46th term? We don't know what it is, so that's going to be our missing variable that we're going to try to solve for. Our a to the 1 is what is our first term. We know our first term is 3, so we're going to plug in 3 here. We've already simplified this inside parentheses, so that is good. And then our d is what is our common difference. We're adding 2 each time, so we're going to multiply it by a positive 2 here. So then we're going to go through and keep simplifying this. So 46 minus 1 is 45. Then we're going to multiply first. 45 times 2 is 90, and then add the 3, so we get 93. So if we keep adding 2 each time, our 46th term is going to be 93. Alrighty, this next problem, this dot 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 means the pattern keeps going this way, the pattern keeps going this way. We know that one of our terms is 15, then there's a blank, and then it's 59. It's an arithmetic sequence, so we want to find that missing middle number. So we can do this problem 2 different ways. We could go ahead and use the arithmetic mean formula, which is just that you add the 2 numbers and then you divide by 2. Okay, so that our x and our y would just be these 2 numbers, and then this arithmetic mean just means we're finding the average, so we're going to find that middle missing number. So if we add these 2 numbers, 59 plus 15, divide by 2, we get 37. Now we need to figure out, is 37 our missing middle number, or is that our pattern? So if we put in 37 right here, notice to get to 15 to 37, we are adding 22. And then to get from 37 to 59, we're adding 22. So our pattern is being consistent, so that 37 is the missing middle number. It's not our common difference. Okay. The other way that we could have done this, we could have used this formula up here. That is perfectly fine. if you're going to use this formula up here, make sure we're going to do it like number 2 that we did, that are in, we would have to, since we don't know our common difference, use that as our missing middle number. And then we would plug in, we pretend this is the first term, this is our third term. So we would do our a to the 3 equals our a to the 1 plus 3 minus 1 times our d. And then from here, our third term, we would plug in 59. Our first term is 15. And then 3 minus 1 is 2. And then we'd go ahead and solve for our d. So if we subtract 15 on both sides, we get 59 minus 15, which is 44. So 2d equals 44. Divide by 2, we get d equals 22. And if you do it this method, notice we solve for the d. So the d stands for common difference. So that is giving us this number right here, our pattern. So we're adding 22 each time. So if we use that, 15 plus 22 would get 37, the missing middle number, plus 22, and then we would end up with the next number. So for this next one, you can choose whichever method you would like. So it's 132, skip a number, and then 98. So this one, if we want to go ahead and choose the arithmetic mean, we would just add those two numbers, divide by 2. So 132 plus 98, divide by 2, and we get 115. If we do this method, then we're going to get that missing middle number. Now I always like to check my work to make sure that if I find that common difference, is it actually consistent each time? So it's from 132, if I subtract 115 from it, notice I get 17, so it's going down 17. And then if I go 115 minus 98, notice I get 17, so it keeps going down 17. My common difference is the same, so I know I have the correct answer. Please make sure for this section that we just have down the arithmetic sequence is just a pattern that is adding or subtracting by the same number, and sequence just means the list of numbers is separated by commas.